What's going on, YouTube? We're back at it for another video, and we're starting up a whole new series here where we're going through the guides from start to finish with Lords of the Fallen, giving you all the tips and tricks you can possibly need when it comes to some of those bosses, finding the secrets, finding on different areas, different pieces of loot that are going to be really beneficial for you. We're going to be cataloging each one of these as we push forward. Now, this one is going to be a bit shorter than some of the videos coming up forward, but only because we're pretty much going from the very beginning of the game all the way up until the Skybridge Vestige point. Keep having to remember what these checkpoints are called. But just around the corner, to our left, we've got another one of those Vigor Skulls over here. That's going to be one of those items that basically will break it apart, get some of the, it's technically not crafting material, but I guess XP points towards leveling yourself at one of those Vestige points. You also start to notice that I use that lamp quite often to kind of look around. I'll start to use it a little bit less as the, the Umbral world is going to be a bit more easy to actually find some of those locations where there's going to be something between worlds that's actually going to be a secret that's hiding in plain sight. But we'll see more of that coming up into the future, and I'll be letting you know how or where those points are. Now, you want to jump down from this location one time, as there is a little bit of a cosmetic that you'll get from dropping down there. It's not something that's necessary, but I'll tell you right now, you definitely don't want to, yeah, I definitely had a big problem with this one, and effectively we need to jump from the left side. I'm really not a big fan of the jump in this game. It just does not feel like it does that great. And platforming later on, I mean, I've gotten a little bit more used to it, but man, it can be, it can make you feel like your legs are coming out from underneath you when it comes to some of these areas coming up when you're up on some tall places and you gotta jump over to another platform. Yeah, platforming in this game, doesn't feel the greatest. You'll see that coming up in the next video. But moving forward from that point, we'll actually have one of our first secret moments from the Umbral. Funny enough, I found this one and I immediately went for it, but this is actually a part of the main objective for this spot, just to kind of get you acquainted with this type of play style, or the way that you're going to have to use this feature throughout the game. Which, as you progress through, it's going to be easier to notice in those moments when you actually need to cross over an Umbral. You'll notice this little creature thing over here that basically looks like a little voodoo doll to me, you know, a little shrunken head's got the tendrils coming out of it. Anytime you see one of those, we're going to need to cross over into Umbral for some type of reason, either to have like a little lore moment looking at some memories, or possibly just being able to just cross over into a different section or find a different pathway that's going to get us to the main objective. And sometimes there will be other things that'll be accompanied with that. You may not always have that moment where that little voodoo doll's there, but there could be something beyond the surface. So keep in mind to kind of have that lamp available at certain moments, but I'll be showcasing every time that I find something, and trust me, I'm very meticulous about just constantly using this lamp everywhere. But at the same time, going forward, we do have some of these little blue orbs. That's going to be to regenerate the soul flaying orbs for our lamp. But at the same time, it gives us more withered health, which is going to be the gray on our health bar. Over here on our left, though, we do need to pop this little thing with the soul flay that's on the wall. That's actually going to give us a crafting material that gives us another one of those health vials later on when we talk to a different NPC. But back to the little balls on the wall. Those can give us more withered health from popping each one of them, not just energy for our lamps. So if you have one of those moments where you're pretty low on health, but you don't have a full health bar, you could pop a couple of those. You don't have to use a lamp to pop them either. You could just attack them and still get the same effect from it. But effectively, you can max out your health bar by utilizing that, gathering that withered health, and then attacking some enemies to gain more health while in Umbral. But now we'll be doubling back to the room that we were just in to open up that door. Like I said before, I went straight for it. Didn't even realize this is one of the things that we had to do to progress forward, but ended up working out. We'll attack that enemy and be able to get through this door down here. You know, this beginning video going to be a little bit more about information than it is actual loot, but we're coming up on our first vestige point, and one little, keynote thing if you're looking for lore is each one of these is technically an old lamp bearer that died, and when you go to it to actually fast travel to other vestige points, they actually have a little bit of lore associated with them, giving a little bit of a description of who they were, how they died, and so on and so forth. I'm not sure whether or not it could benefit you later on to some of the secrets, or possibly just connecting some of the dots, but it's something to look into if you're really into the lore in this game. Now, the first boss unit we're going to have here is going to be that Holy Otto. I thought he was pretty easy. That's one of those skill check moments that I thought was way too easy. I mean, it was not hard to check his telegraph moves. That was the first time going in and just able to just knock it out of the park. And then they went from easy difficulty all the way up to nightmare difficulty, because the Light Reaper is definitely not playing around. It's definitely one that takes a bit more skill to actually interact with, and the damage on this guy is absolutely absurd. I got saved from one of his attacks right there, based on the simple fact that, you know, there is a little grace period when you come back or go into the Umbral. You notice right there, it was basically like a 2-shot, boom, we're over. Really irritated me, because I, you know, now Reaper should destroy the Light Reaper, but somebody else that used to be a lamp bearer steps in, scares away that guy to where, you know, we couldn't effectively come back and destroy him like I wanted to, which is pretty irritating, but we'll be meeting up with that character a little bit later on. I wouldn't be surprised if sometime going forward we eventually had to fight that guy. But moving from that little boss area over there, we'll head over to the right and we'll find some flayed skin. This is going to be a bit of a talking point with one of the NPCs we'll be meeting later on that I like to call Raiden. I forget his name, but if you know the guy, you know the hat on the guy, you know who I'm talking about. It's not hard to see it. But at the same time, in the Umbral over here, we will have a door that sadly we cannot get through just yet. I believe this is a door that we'll be accessing later in the main questline to get to a different area. Absolutely frustrating that some of these enemies are going to be able to get the upper hand on you, but we'll just need to pop that protective ghost jelly on them by using the lamp and RB, and then we'll be able to damage them. But like I said, that door, as well as some other doors we'll be seeing in the coming future, are going to be doors that will only be unlocked, or possibly unlocked, by progressing the main storyline, and I assume that one is in that same category, as there is actually another door that we'll be coming up to in this video that I know for a fact doesn't open until we've actually cleansed one of the actual red beams of light out there, and then we'll actually have a dialogue option or option to open that door later on and progress forward to the next zone. But there's going to be the guy that we apparently got saved by, and a new vestige point for us going forward. Pretty sure they made 2 vestige points right there, because that door back there is actually going to be needed in order to move on to a different location at a different portion of the game. But coming up over here, we'll have one of those first moments where we'll need to kind of go into Umbral and soulfully one of those memories to get a little bit of that lore. You don't necessarily have to do this, but it does give you some crafting material or tradable material that could be beneficial for you later on when it comes to a certain NPC that you can trade these items with. Now, pushing forward, we'll be making our way into our first village. Now, we'll be pillaging everything, trying to get as much loot out of this as possible, with a bunch of cross-bearing enemies, as well as these Jingle Bell staff. They're not even archers. They just throw stuff at you, and man, I'm telling you, you'll grow to hate these guys as much as I do. Every time I hear those bells anywhere, I just know there's about to be something lobbed at me. But just over to our left, and just behind this little shop front, we have some boxes we need to break down. This is going to be one of our first secret loot locations, which is going to be a weapon. Now, you know, one thing to be understood from this game is you can't pause, so there's going to be some moments where I may have to look at that, or I may have to deal with some enemies before looking at that item. But you can pause that right there. It's a bit of a bleed type sword, something more towards not a great sword player, but somebody that could utilize a shield and sword. That would be a solid weapon for you to stack bleed. But just cutting that guy down from that tree, we'll get a little bit of that pilgrim armor. It's not that great. And just behind that, over to our left, we will actually get something that's going to be pretty beneficial for us. It's going to be the ammunition pouch. I believe the devs did kind of want every class to kind of utilize throwables or some type of ranged type of weapon. And I feel pretty comfortable with the ranged style weapons that I've gotten. Oh man, I'm telling you, once we get to Pilgrim's Perch, guys, I mean, if you're somebody that has a bunch of capability of throwing items, we will be finding a hammer that is going to be absolutely devastating in the next video coming up. But a lot of times if you run out of the, throwable energy, I suppose, you'll just need to use one of those ammunition pouches to kind of fill it back up. It'll be just underneath your stamina bar. But after we've taken out that enemy over there, pushing in forward, we'll have to go behind some wagons and we'll be dealing with a fire type enemy. He's not the worst thing that you have to fight, but just do keep it in mind, he's going to be throwing some fire, and at the same time he's going to throw some little mines on the ground that'll be like fire. Anytime you step into them, you could catch flame, and you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, you got to keep an eye on that to make sure that you don't end up with that burning damage. As soon as you've got that status effect on you, it could be pretty devastating. But luckily enough, as long as you don't walk into a lot of his attacks or walk into his mines on the ground, you should be doing pretty well. Now, this would be one of those moments where that ammunition pouch comes in handy. You would think you'd be able to hit this in some way, but what you'll need to do is just refill your ammunition if it's already depleted for you, and then just be able to drop that down, and then drop down from that building and be able to grab up, what was it? We've got the Preacher's shield right here. I didn't pull that one up on screen as I wasn't sure whether or not it'd actually be a great shield for some people to use. I'm still kind of skeptical as to whether or not it would be, but from this graveyard we'll be getting I think 2 of the bigger skulls, and then we actually get an axe, I believe, which is actually going to be the raw Mangler axe. Gives you a little bit of that fire damage that you can build up. So if you're one of those players that's been utilizing a shield and axe, could be beneficial a little bit later on down the road once you upgrade it. But with some of these enemies at the beginning being the flame type, it may not be as useful right now, but who knows, it could be pretty strong later on. You could just upgrade it. You never know how things are going to roll. I do know once we're done with this zone right here, we do go into a bit of a frost area, so it could end up becoming pretty powerful once you hit that portion, or that portion of the game. Now, you'll notice we've got more than a few enemies that are basically going to be hiding around some type of debris around every corner. I'd be, head on a swivel constantly anytime you see something that looks like it might be destructible, or you might have a corner that you really can't see around, but it may be one of those locations where you could get pushed off the edge really easy. You'll see a lot of that coming up in the next video, and, ooh, man, those devs, they think they're funny. I'll tell you right now, they're just absolute frustration. But we'll see that coming forward. But just from the left side of that vestige point that we just got, or to the right side of it, we'll need to go back into the umbral, jump on down, as there's going to be one particular item that we can get down here that is going to be pretty useful for us later on. Just so we don't have to double back and grab this up later. It's probably going to be one of the better ones that we'll find at the beginning, especially if you're using soul flay pretty often. We'll also have another little piece of lore over here that we can get, and a little bit more of that crafting material from popping that out, or that tradable material. But we'll pop the stomach on that guy right there, and we'll actually get our first socket, or eyeball, to socket into our lamp. Now, we can't do that just yet. We'll have to go to a special NPC vendor that we'll be seeing at the Sky Bridge coming up at the end of this video, so we'll be able to slot it in there. But from this point, we'll double back to that vestige point after we've taken out a couple of these enemies, and we'll rest up to come back out of the umbral so that we can start heading forward. Now, over on our right, it'll give us one of those cued moments where we can kind of slowly walk up to somebody and get that finishing blow, but we'll also have some unripe berries up behind that little wagon over there. Not the greatest thing, but can help you out a little bit. Not sure if it turns into crafting material later on, but I collect everything as there's got to be a use for it at some point, right? But after resting up, over here is actually going to be an item that's hanging from the side of this building. You do want to knock this down. Just about every player in the game wants to knock this down, as this ring is going to be a pretty powerful upgrade for us for this early portion, as it just gives us an increase to stamina and stamina regeneration. You really can't go wrong with this ring. I'm not sure how it may be beneficial for, the spellcasters in this game, but for anybody else that's using stamina, that's going to be a huge help at the beginning here. Now, going forward, when it comes to Umbral, we'll actually be able to move into submerged locations, but if you do walk into a submerged location with the lamp out, you will end up killing yourself and sending yourself to the Umbral, so do keep that in mind. It's not like those moments when you see a little bit of a bridge that you could walk across while just holding the lamp. You will have to go into Umbral to go underwater in these cases. You can't just have the lamp out and walk under the ocean, even though I wish you could. Now, over here on the right, we will have another item to knock down. This is going to be just a little bit more of the armor pieces. I wouldn't say that it's something that's going to be hugely beneficial for some type of melee build, but it could be beneficial for some of those casters out there, or maybe even a mix of the melee to ranged. Who knows? You may be just looking for something that has better resistances on it than actual physical damage reduction. But over to our left, coming up from that ladder, we will need to knock down that bridge. That way we can actually just run across from that vestige point, not have to go back through that point where we have to go through the umbral, through the water, and then come up around this corner. As that portion right there is actually going to just connect us back with that water. We'll head up on this ladder over to our left, grab up a little bit of that holy ward, which is, I mean, effectively it almost looks like a little makeup dish that we just wipe on us and give us a little bit more of that holy resistance. Now in this room, once we talk to the guy that saved us earlier from the Light Reaper, this guy's going to give us our first vestige seed. Now, do not waste this. Do not throw this down anywhere close to where you're at right now. You do not want to waste these. These are the only thing that we'll be able to use as a basically make your own checkpoint in between certain vestiges. Now later on, these are going to be pretty beneficial for you, but there is only a certain amount of them. You will generally only get them from a boss unit, and I don't know how many you can buy from a certain NPC later on, but I don't imagine there's going to be an unlimited amount. So these are going to be few and far between, easy to gather, and at the same time, once you use it, that's gone. You only have a certain amount of these, and trust me when I say some people will more than likely need more than a few of these at certain points in order to make it through the game. Or at least make the game a whole lot easier for yourself, especially when there's some mini boss fights that are pretty good distance from some of these vestige points, and it could be pretty frustrating. Just ahead, we'll have an ammunition pouch over here on our right, and a door that I have not been able to yet open. You know, let me know down in the comments if anybody's been able to open that one up, and do be sure not to throw any spoilers out there if it's one of those doors that you can't open until you progress through there further in the storyline. You know, just say it's going to be one that you'll open up a lot later on. Because I think I forgot to mention it, that bell door back at that last vestige point is 100% guaranteed one of those doors you can only open later on once you progress through the main quest line. But now we've made it to the beauty that we call PIETA. PIETA. The name always reminds me of that guy from the Hunger Games. I don't know why I want to say Game of Thrones. It's the Hunger Games. But I had a good time with PIETA, I can't remember how she pronounces it. She just really gave me a troublesome time at the very beginning, and it was because there was more than a few times, like right here, where it seems like I dodged out of it, but at the last second, I seem to just be getting one shot by some of this stuff, or getting caught in an animation. Really frustrating. This almost feels like one of those skill check bosses. Definitely one of the first ones is. We're going to take it from the top. After about 45 minutes, I finally got the hang of all the timing with this one. Now, my main objective was to basically break down her stagger bar. You'll notice that she does about 2 swings, and then we're able to get in 1 charged heavy attack. Be careful with this, as occasionally, like in this moment, no, it wasn't this moment, there will be a 3rd and 4th swing. She won't always just do 2 swings, and then another one, I believe. Yeah, I got lucky right here. I was able to get the swing off and stagger her right before she went into that next one, but not always will it just be a 2-strike. But coming up behind her, you'll notice we're really working on that stagger bar. We're almost there. We need 1 more charged attack to get her on her knees. That's one of those moments where she did 4 strikes instead of just the 2. We'll get up in front of her, hit that RB, stab it, and we'll finally be at half health. By this point, she'll slam down into the ground. We don't want to be anywhere close to that. It's going to give us some damage right there, but she'll grow her wings, and we just need to stand on either side of this bridge, the left or the right side, not the middle, as this is where all of the damage is going to be coming in. But her first attacks are always going to be a couple of swings, sometimes 2, sometimes it can be 3. Generally, you'll notice she'll make a little pose where either her knee is up in the air, or she'll be kind of weirdly almost like flying away. That's going to be the moments when you know she's done swinging. You can go in for an attack. It's pretty easily telegraphed right there. But there will be a couple of moments where you'll notice like this. She's about to slam down again, but then we've got a brief moment to get a couple of strikes in. But be careful, as she's going to be ready to just swing right back and then either dodge away or come in for a couple more swings. But like I said before, you'll have moments where she does that pose where you'll either see that knee up in the air, or she'll just kind of be doing a weird, almost like Superman going up into the sky move. Now at this point, we just need to stay in the middle. She'll spawn into to the left and the right side, but generally she will never do anything but a type of melee strike. You'll notice we got that knee up in the air. We're able to get some strikes in and then being able to dodge away from that. Now this is one of those moments, I promise you, that's going to be hard to see whether or not that's going to be it, because she could also get those two to spawn in and just do some of that ground lightning stuff or ground holy stuff. This moment, we'll have to get over to the left. This is one of the few moments she did a different type of attack other than a swing on me. But be aware it could change up, but 90% of the time she will only do a melee swing on that. As you'll notice, she continued with a melee swing right after that, and we were able to get some damage in right there. Now when it comes to her actual melee strikes, you kind of wait and then dodge as soon as you know it's about to have that swing. But thankfully, God, oh man, that was satisfying to finish that one off. And I'm telling you right now, I was pretty worried there was going to be a second phase when you get the cutscene right after this. Because, I mean, look at me walking away, and I'll let you have your moment if you haven't seen it yourself. But it definitely looked like there might have been something else that was going to happen there. But Heresy purged, and now we're able to push forward. But we'll also have another one of those little memory moments, so we'll need to pull ourselves into the Umbral, get that moment, get the crafting material from that. Oh, yeah, and we'll also get the Remembrance from that, so keep that in mind. Similar to what we had in Elden Ring or Lies of P, you know, each one of those boss fights will give us a little bit of a tradable currency item that we'll get some other items out of with, which actually I believe we'll need the little larvas that we get from those in order to buy those Remembrance items from them. Now, I'm a complete idiot. I just don't ever use that like I just used it, because there is a vestige point just underneath here. I can't believe I did that. That really irritated me. I thought I was going to be in one of those moments where we got to go a little bit further to find another vestige point. I mean, complete dummy over here, and there's Raiden again. But I should have never wasted that right there. That means that I now only have one left. And I can't believe I wasted that. But thankfully, I've been able to make it through the game on most of the vestige points without having to use these seeds. But once we get into this location, which is going to be the Skybridge location, we'll need to talk to Raiden. We'll communicate with him, and again, it's going to be one of those moments where you kind of need to like keep talking with them over and over, because he will become a vendor after this, and he'll also give us a gesture as well. We'll be able to talk with him later with some of the miscellaneous items that we'll be finding along the way as well. This will give us some types of side quests, a little bit more lore, and a bit more background on some of these items that we find as well that could give us a couple of clues or things to understand some of the secrets going forward. But from that point, we'll also need to go to the woman behind him, which is actually going to be the woman we just fought, the PIETA woman. She will actually give us the capability of upgrading our health vials and giving us more of those using the currency that we found at the very beginning. We'll unlock this vestige point over here as well. And then we actually need to head back to the location of the stairwell that we came in from the bridge itself and go to the very top, as there's going to be a chest up here that'll give us a spell with Sanctify, where one of those magic users can basically put a healing aura on the ground that also not only heals but removes status effects. Now, later on in the next video, we'll be able to move to this section over here. We'll be able to find that ladder coming down. It's actually a little bit underwhelming once you finally get there. I guess it's one of those connecting points. If you went through another secret, you would eventually find that secret, but we're able to grab this up beforehand. Going back to the Skybridge location, we'll also have another person that we need to talk to. And the number one thing you want from this is the Pilgrim's Perch key. We're going to need this key to get into certain secret areas, but he also has a ring that could be pretty good for some of those other people. Now, just over to the right of PIETA, we are also going to have an umbral vendor, where this is going to be where we can socket in our umbral eyes for our lamp and upgrade our lamps, as well as grabbing up some cosmetic items from this other section by donating certain other eyes that we'll find from these red floating lamps, kind of giving us little mini bosses. But effectively, that's going to be the end of the first guide for this. We're going to be starting from this point and going into Pilgrim's Perch from this point going forward. If you've enjoyed this content, you know, hit that subscribe button. If you'd like to see some of this content live, hit that link down in the description below. Follow me over at Twitch. We're going to be streaming daily. There's going to be a whole lot of content to come with this. I'm going to be doing a full 100% guide as we progress through the entire game. It's going to take some time. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to get this chronologically as quickly as I possibly can. I'm trying to get as much as I can before this next coming weekend, as I know that's going to be the prime time for a lot of people really trying to dive into this. And I know some people are going to be a little bit further than this first portion, but Pilgrim's Perch is definitely filled with secrets, filled with a lot of good items, and there's a lot of things you could easily miss while pushing forward, as well as some locations you want to save for a little bit later, as it's actually going to have some higher level enemies in that zone that could end up taxing you a lot of time when you could just end up hitting the main quest, then doubling back to have a little bit of a challenge, but gain a lot more of that vigor and a lot of solid items that are going to help you in the next areas to come and going through the next main zones. But that being said, hopefully you've enjoyed this, guys. If you'd like to see more of it, obviously hit that subscribe button, but at the same time, I'll see you in the next video and have a good one.